Welcome to Framework and our ongoing coverage of the John Carpenter filmography. Framework's John Carpenter's The Podcast is what we are still calling it. Today is a very big one. We're talking about one of the best films anyone's ever made, I guess. The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. A remake of the Howard Hawks original from the 50s, coming out in 1982. With me, as always, Al Schwartz, the co-host of Framework. How are you today, Al?
Oh, I'm great, John. And you called this one of the best movies ever made right out of the gate. And I feel like for proper podcasting, dynamics, we should probably have somebody to present an alternate view on that. But it's not going to be me. So maybe we have a first-time guest today, a friend of ours from the Movie Microscope podcast, Mr. Justin Waddell. Justin, do you want to disagree with us that this is one of the best movies ever?
This movie sucks. Yeah, it's terrible.
Good. All right. We have one of us that has not been assimilated yet. What's your Carpenter relationship to start with?
I have to apologize, guys. I accidentally watched the thing, That Thing You Do, for this podcast, the Tom Hanks movie. So I'm
Isn't that also a movie?
My Carpenter.
I was gonna say that's also about assimilation, isn't it?
Yeah, also based on the Howard Hawks movie, I think. It's my relationship with Carpenter is like I've always, it's just like any kind of film geek, right? You kind of worship John Carpenter, right? I heard you guys. I was telling John before the podcast. I heard you guys teeing off on The Fog a little bit last episode, or whenever, not last episode, a couple episodes ago, right?
Yeah.
It hurt my heart, guys, because I have a special,
There are tiers. There are tiers. That's not S tier. It's not A tier. It's mid. It's mid. What an asshole I was.
Yeah, and so what I've convinced myself over the years with John Carpenter is I think he's like a masterful storyteller, an incredible American filmmaker. I mean, it's so funny because he doesn't he downplays all of that. Like he's just like, he just wants you to think of him as like a normal dude that got screwed by Hollywood and now he plays video games and watches basketball for a living, and waits for people to remake his movies so he can get paid.
Just living the dream, man.
Yeah, it's a dream. Yeah.
Coming soon, the remake of The Thing. They're doing it again.
Yes, after remaking / prequelizing it already. Yeah. But you're definitely right about that. That's Carpenter's whole deal, is that he is sort of a geek god for making a handful of movies, but he's also like, a very fallible deity, in that nobody, even among the hardcore film geeks, is like, oh yeah, he bats 1,000, and they're all masterpieces. There are people who go to bat for everything that Tarantino does or everything that Paul Thomas Anderson does or whatever. But I try to think who else has got like the highest highs, but also the acknowledged, like Coppola, I think, has got a spotty track record by most.
Yeah.
But people just kind of forget about Jack, I feel like.
Well, Carpenter, I mean, like, his films are unpretentious in because they're all genre. He's never going to do, his one from the heart or whatever. He's always going to be the guy who makes movies like The Thing or In the Mouth of Madness or, pure monster films, genre films, killer films. This is the first of the Apocalypse trilogy. And I think that sort of hides what an incredible craftsman he is. One of the great craftsmen, filmmakers. Like, nobody makes movies as good as The Thing. Like, the storytelling in this film. Obviously the effects are their own thing, but the moment-to-moment tension of individual scenes, of seeing the geography of this place, of this sort of ensemble of 12 guys that are just sort of these random bearded dudes with, it's just code names, basically, Windows and Knowles and Gary, and you somehow keep track of all of them, and you're kind of cognizant of, well, that one could be The Thing. I don't trust that one, but he makes it look so easy too. It's regular filmmakers can't do this.
He probably never got. You're saying that he never kind of stepped outside the genre. Movies is, it's probably, maybe it's his passion, but I think he also really, the door shut on him a lot. Like I think the thing I was reading about this morning was when this movie failed, like like a big deal fell, like a 3-picture deal fell through for him. He always had, I think there was a book called The Star Is My Destination, which is a sci-fi movie or a sci-fi book that he wanted to make for years.
Oh, that would have been great.
And he's, by Alfred Bester, I think, and he never got a chance to make it. So I think his is kind of a tale of like this frustrated, director or creator that just never kind of got to make maybe, what he should have been. He should still be working,
Yeah. But he did get to make like almost 20 movies. It's not like he didn't.
He's scrappy. Are we counting The Ward? Are you throwing that in there?
Got to.
Oh yeah, sure. He was released, I guess.
Amber Heard's finest movie. But yeah, he did like I think he just gave up. It seems like he just kind of gave up towards the end. It was like,
I mean, you get frustrated. I understand that.
Yeah.
But he did keep getting like opportunities of a sort. He kept getting at bats, but always sort of hobbled in some way. He was never got the full backing, like the giant budget. It never felt like the studios were entirely behind him after this one, I guess. And I mean, maybe should we just talk about the critical reception to this and the box office to it right off the bat before we even get to the story? Because this movie was absolutely savaged when it came out. Like, not just that it was a box office flop, but the critics had knives out for it, like at all levels.
What the shit, though? Like,
I know it's incredible.
You try to think about why, right? Because it's a great movie. It's a story well told, right? Good characters. Like you're trying to, and I guess maybe what it was, first of all, it is a downer movie, right? There's that. It goes out on it's sad. So people probably were like, I'm not feeling happy. I'm gonna write a bad review. And then also it's super gross. And so it was like
viscerally disgusting.
And so those two things I think probably distracted some reviewers into giving it, bad, awful takes, like terrible review. Obviously they gave them terrible reviews, but they're wrong,
Yes.
So, and it's their job to get it right. What's going on, guys? So
there's the one. It's not. Ebert gave it a terrible review.
Ebert did,
saying that it's like all they put all the effort into the effects and the story's terrible, which is just a wild swing and a miss. But there's another one, I forget who it was exactly, but called it the quintessential moron movie of the '80s. Is the line that I saw popped up in a couple different places. Like how could you be that wrong? Like,
it's hard to compass. Like I get like. Not liking a horror film. I get that, but this is it can only be because I don't know. It came out around the same time as E.T. Everyone was loving E.T. It was a really stacked summer. Besides that, it had a lot of like it was Star Trek II, Road Warrior, Poltergeist, Conan the Barbarian, all in theaters when this comes out.
Blade Runner
comes out on the same day as
Blade Runner came out the same day.
Yeah,
same day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's just terrible programming by the studios.
This is a fall movie. This is such a fall movie.
Yeah, it came out in the summer. Like for no brainer. What are you doing?
Man, this Christmas is movie. Come on, it's Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the ET thing gets thrown around a lot as the explanation is that people were in the mood for ET. It was a different type of thing. I don't know if I have ever fully bought that. It seems like just fine counter programming to ET. That not everybody's not the same thing all the time. And honestly, like, okay, they both involve extraterrestrials, but they have nothing else in common. They're not. It feels weird.
I'm sure we could find some more connections if we really thought about it. There's got to be something else. Do they play D&D in the thing? No. Let me see.
They play chess.
Brimley plays ping pong. Is there ping pong in the ET? I was shocked. That was a shocking thing to see. I had forgotten. The movie pretty much starts with Wilford Brimley playing ping pong.
Yeah.
And actually looking like he's pretty good at it.
Yeah, well, it's just everybody thinks of Wilford Brimley as this old man, but interesting bit of trivia if I can zoom in like you do on your show here. Wilford Brimley, 23 years old when they shot this.
When Wilford Brimley was born, he looked 58. So, I didn't look how old he was when he made this. Was it like?
I think it's 47.
40, it's 47.
Jeez.
Yeah,
it's so hard to imagine him as a teenager though, or as a young man. He's just one of those. He's the one of those.
He's in
the ultimate.
He's in a movie about Titanic called A Night to Remember. Black and white film.
Yeah.
Basically plays the DiCaprio character in it. That's teenage Brimley. It's very odd to see.
Wow.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say he was on a movie about the Titanic, where it's like one of those old daguerreotypes where he's waving at the ship as it leaves.
Like he's a vampire who was on the
dock.
Right.
One thing I learned today that was interesting was I was like, why wasn't Donald Pleasance in this? So Kurt Russell's in here, right? Kurt Russell, of course, Carpenter's own Robert De Niro to his Scorsese, but like, Donald Pleasance also he'd carry him around from movie to movie, and he was, according to the trivia, Carpenter wanted him for the Brimley role.
Obviously,
he couldn't do it. Yeah,
I didn't even read that. I just presumed it. I was going to ask why wasn't this Pleasance after?
He would have nailed it too. I mean, wouldn't
and
trade
then
Brimley.
And then the actor,
but
the actor that plays Bennings kind of looks like a younger Donald Pleasance, So
he does.
Carpenter was like, I got to somehow get my Pleasance avatar in this film.
One assumes that it was just a scheduling thing.
Oh,
the other thing that carries over is like the female lead of one movie does the voiceover role in this one, where I believe isn't Adrienne Barbeau the voice of the chess computer?
She is.
Yes.
Were they still married?
The chess computer,
probably.
Probably right.
Probably
the chess computer is the first death in this film is the chess computer.
That's true. that's true.
It's foreshadowing. It's it took me like 10 times to realize, like, oh, that's how they beat it at the end. They kind of lose, so they just blow up the whole thing.
Yeah, it's the really downer counterpart to the war games. Like, the only way to win is not to play thing. It's the only way to win is to destroy the entire world and yourself in the process.
Now no one can play chess.
Right. So we're maybe even getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start at the very beginning of this movie.
What an opening! What an opening!
Well, this is the thing. The actual very first shot of this movie is a UFO entering the atmosphere sometime in the distant past. And I've thought about this. There's a handful of movies, I think this and Predator most prominently, that have this exact same opening. And I always wonder, like, would this movie be improved by just not having that?
Nah, I love it. It's great. You don't need it.
You want to just discover the alien scenario along with the Predator guys or the Outpost 31 guys?
You wonder if, because you wonder if they were like, that was a studio note, because certainly the way this movie opens is incredible. We're introduced to the characters as they're catching up with what's going on, like as we're catching up with what's going on, right? So this helicopter is chasing a dog across the Arctic and shooting at it, and it runs into their camp, our character's camp. So like, I love that it opens that way. I think there was I read that there was like a TV version where they try to introduce you to the characters before this all happens.
No. Boo.
That's such a bad choice. Like, this is such a great way to open the movie. So I agree with you, Al. I think you could dump the UFO crashing into Earth. I like it. I like the fact that it's cool, but you don't need it for sure.
I don't know. I think it does place it in a continuity with sort of 50s monster movies. Obviously, the whole movie has the same basic premise as that, but I do like seeing a legitimate flying saucer at the beginning of this, and thinking about that this particular weird alien is indeed flying around in a flying saucer is fun to me. I would say the one in Predator is more cuttable and more of a surprise that there are aliens involved than the Thing.
Yeah. I just wonder if the exploring the Norwegian camp and uncovering the flying saucer in the ice would have more impact if we hadn't already been confirmed the flying saucer thing right out of the gate. But you're right, it's more of a pronounced thing in Predator. This is the first 8 seconds of the movie. We don't need to belabor it that much.
I'm not trying to give John Carpenter notes on the Thing. I'm just saying that if, let's say, you started late and missed this beginning, you'd be fine.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
No, okay. But the other thing about that Justin was saying is that this does strike me as the two fundamental types of horror movie, or at least two ways that they can function. And between, I think if this is a prime example of the one thing and Halloween is the other. So John Carpenter's kind of done the ultimate examples of both. But Halloween's one where you're so far ahead of the characters for 90% of that movie. Well, I guess Loomis kind of knows what Laurie Strode is up against, but he doesn't know where Michael is or what he's doing, where we get to see all that. And it takes Laurie the entire movie to realize what movie she's in. And so that it's about building a certain type of dread and that don't go in there type of thing. Whereas The Thing is the version I like better, which is we are really never ahead of the characters. Like we find out everything along with the characters. So sometimes, you cut back to some other buddy in a different spot who's not fully up to speed on what was happening in the last scene, but they're always getting caught up to us within the course of a single scene. We start to see the dog transformation first, but everybody sees it by the end of that. There's no part of this movie where Blair or McCready has to like try and convince other people of what's happening.
Yeah, there's no bomb under the table that the audience is aware of and the characters aren't in the Hitchcock vernacular. It's like we know everything the characters know and that's it. We don't even know if Kurt Russell got turned into the Thing for a 20-minute period of this.
Right.
Like we're kind of just there with them. It's like, shit, what? We are overmatched here by the Thing just as much as they are. We're not
totally. And the Thing is like playing tricks on everybody. Like the Thing is, he's messing with people. And so we're messed with. Like we don't know. We're kind of putting our faith in McCready. We're like he's the guy that you're like, well, he's not. At least he's not. The Thing, but at the end you don't know that. Like it's like Carpenter just never tips his hat. Yeah, exactly.
Well, even in the middle of the movie where he disappears and Knowles comes back and says, "Yeah, he's the Thing," and then there's that section John was talking about.
What a scene!
And then we kind of reestablish it with a blood test, which I mean, God, we'll have to get to that. But yeah, I guess that is part of the key to this. Why it can get away with that. It doesn't need to do the let's tip the hand of the audience so that they're worried about this, show them the bomb under the table thing, just because the bomb is the premise of this movie, and it's such an overwhelming and horrifying bomb that like the characters can be fully up to speed, and it's still really overwhelming for us. I
mean, it's an incredible premise that also allows for some of the most incredible design work that has been committed to film. Like as far as monster effects go, is it just agreed on that this has the best monster in cinema at this point? I mean, it could be. I mean, you could argue, I don't know, the Frankenstein monster is a pretty good design, the original, whatever. But
the alien, I think, is the
that's a good one, yeah.
One I would put up there.
But effects work done mostly by Rob Bottin.
Yes,
right.
22.
The J.D. Salinger of special effects guys disappeared. Like, where is he?
Yeah.
Wasn't he working on his movie when he was like in his
he was 22.
early 20s?
22 years old, which
He's
is
22?
Upsetting, to be honest. Yeah, he'd already done The Fog, as a matter of fact. That was, I think, his first thing, which is, it's guys who are pirate ghosts. They got swords. They look like pirates in the shadows, and their eyes glow. That's it. And then he levels up
they
to
look
this.
good. I mean, that's dismissive, but they look good on screen in that case. I think.
Sure, yeah.
But no, but nothing's got a spot on this. I mean, other than the xenomorph, and it's hard, I guess, to place it against like your Godzillas or whatever as movie monsters, because part of the genius of this thing in this movie is that it never appears the same way twice.
It's an amalgam of every creature that it's converted through every galaxy, is what Bottin says, which pretty cool, pretty good premise, pretty good idea. That's the pitch that got him the job, apparently.
And they're all super duper gross.
Yep. It's teeth that come out of his stomach or what have you.
Yeah, you never quite understand what you're looking at. Yeah, that's what you're kind of saying is the characters don't quite know what they're looking at ever, and you kind of don't. You're like, it's always kind of certainly changing its form throughout this whole thing. Yeah. At the end, like Blair's got his fingers in Donald Moffat's face. Like it's like there's a new trick, like you didn't see coming. So you think you kind of know how it is, just the way it reacts to those dogs later in the kennel, right? You think you know how it's doing its thing. And by the end, you're like, maybe I don't know what's happening.
That dog scene
is just cosmically gross.
We could never really get our arms around this threat, and the characters can't either. Like, we can't even get our arms around it visually because it's always something different. And like up to the end, where he sticks his fingers into Tom Moffat's face and then is dragging him off by the face. That's great. Honestly, though, it's after that when they get the final Blair version of the thing, like Blair's face sort of popping out of. That's where I this movie is an hour and 40 odd minutes. just God bless John Carpenter's soul. He's never done a movie at over 2 hours. And it's wonderful. But it's also like, this is the perfect length of the movie, because that's the first time where it's like, okay, that is a different shape than we've seen, but it doesn't feel... There's no new form of disgusting there. It's like that's sort of like the dog thing from before, but with Brimley's face instead of a dog's face. And that means that it was time to wrap this up, because you can't do something like the head sprouting spider legs and eye stalks every 10 minutes indefinitely.
Do you think this movie benefits from HD or Blu-ray, that technology, the way it kind of shines a light on some of the effects, like where in the past it probably was a little murkier?
Well, I picked up a 4K of it, and it looked pretty good.
It looks great, but the one thing that I realized is the Doctor has a nose ring, so like that's the big revelation that the new technology shined a light on, I think. But yeah, I wonder if the effects still hold up. I think it's not like it looks cheap, but I just wondered if maybe in the past it was a little creepier even.
This would be a good VHS movie, darker. I would think. Like where the sort of the loss of image benefits it in a way. I mean, look, it still looks great. It's a great looking film, but yeah, the not entirely being sure what you're looking at quality of it probably is enhanced by it. It's kind of a brilliant film in that way too, accidentally, I guess.
Well, and I think you definitely gain something by the practical effects and them being tangible, and they retain their ability to disgust because it's all real stuff there, and the people are reacting to real things in space with them. And when they remade the movie or prequelized it in 2011, that's a weird movie, just because it is technically a prequel, but it feels like a remake because it's beat for beat so much of the same stuff. I mean, I guess we kind of figure the Norwegian camp went through a lot of the same beats, but like maybe not exactly like A to B to C, and like they have their own version of the blood test and everything, which you have to do in a remake. But I don't know if you really have to do that in a prequel. Anyway, the point of I bring that up is that's one where notoriously they replaced everything with CGI, all the practical effects, and because of that, the monster is not as disgusting. It doesn't turn my stomach in the same way, I feel like.
And I don't know. It has a sheen, and it also is duplicating stuff we've seen in John Carpenter's The Thing. Much like how it's duplicating scenes, assimilating them, if you will. It is also kind of just like recreating the aesthetic. And kind of the thing about The Thing and how it looks is that it's so original and so unique. I mean, just step back. Like the first time you saw this film, I imagine this is one you remember the first time with. I certainly do. Weird friend in high school showed it to me. Kind of an odd friend. God bless the odd friends. Showed me things like this and Akira, and I basically knew John Carpenter from Big Trouble in Little China, and that was it. And then seeing The Thing, I was just like, holy shit! I had no idea movies could look like this. I had no idea movies could end like this. Like this is a revelation of a film when you see it the first time, because it is so original, and there's just nothing to compare it to. I mean, ostensibly
this
50s
was one,
movies, but come on.
This is one of the first movies I think that back in the day, we all met on the old Chud.com website. I got on there back when I was 19 or something, and this is one of the first movies that everybody was raving about there, and I put it on, got it from Netflix. And what I had picked up from the chatter online was that this was like a body snatcher movie, right? And that it was a paranoia kind of thriller thing. So I was unprepared for the level of like body horror and visceral effects, like completely blindsided by, I expected it to be a lot more tasteful, I guess. I knew the guy had done Halloween, so it's like, yeah, he's not like, I don't know, he's not an Academy Award type director, but the viscera of this really blindsided me, and how it goes so hard the first time the thing appears. It shows itself in that dog transformation, and you kind of think from there, okay, maybe there's no topping that, and no, because then you get the defibrillator scene and you get the blood test and everything.
Is this one of the best dog acting performances of all time? I mean, this dog is incredible.
I think without question.
Like this.
Without question.
It's so good. And I think Carpenter loved the dog. Its name is Jed or something. And I think Jed. But it just really is, once you realize that you're supposed to be paying attention, that there's something going on with this dog, it's just, it's directed so well. It just looks like it is super intelligent and is up to no good.
Yeah, it's eerie how it moves with such purpose and like
it looks like it's scheming. It is scheming, and it looks like
watching the helicopter out the window. God, it seems so.
It does that whole thing stalking down the hallway without doing any panting, which I don't know how you would direct a dog to like don't pant, just look like you're not even breathing, and they did that somehow. I mean, really, I guess that the walk down the hallway thing and where you see the shadow on the wall, like that's the only time really that we are ahead of the characters in the way that I was talking about before, where we kind of know something's up there.
But it's only for a moment.
Yeah, it's for like one scene. It's not for an entire act of this
the dog
movie.
goes into a room and there's a person in the room and it turns around and you just see the shadow and the Carpenter didn't use any of the actors so you do that shot so you could never link it to anything. A character in the movie, right?
Apparently, it was
not definitively.
It was Clemens originally. They shot it with Clemens, and it was too obviously him. Apparently, and so they replaced it with Dick Warlock.
Oh, yeah. You mean Clennon Palmer?
Yes,
Palmer. The guy plays Palmer.
The actor's name is Clemens. That's right. Yeah,
yeah, David Clennon. Yeah, he was
no,
great.
I mean,
he was absolutely great in this movie, by the way.
There's nobody who's not great in this movie.
Fantastic ensemble.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the guy who plays Fuchs is fine.
No,
but
Fuchs is great. I love
like
Fuchs.
Fantastic.
Fuchs is
he's got one of the best names. He's got one of the best names and all these memorable names. The guy that stuck out with the in the trivia I was reading of the guy that played Windows. What's his last name? He was in the Warriors and he got fired off of the Warriors for being problematic. But then he showed up to set one day and he demanded that everybody call him Windows. And Carpenter just rolled with it. It's not even a joke. Like I was like, that's really strange. And it is a very memorable name in this. Like that's one of the few names I don't forget. I mean, I kind of know, McReady, Blair, all those, but
Childs, yeah.
At this point, I think I could probably do them all. Yeah.
My character's called Windows, and you guys are gonna be calling me that,
when you introduce.
So I guess Carpenter he got fired for being problematic off the Warriors, and then Carpenter just rolled with what he wanted in this. Carpenter, I guess, knows how to work with problematic actors a little bit better than Walter Hill or something.
He looks like the father of Danny Masterson from that 70s show, who was fired off of that remake for being problematic as well. But no, it's so.
Danny Masterson mentioned already. It's too early. It's Sunday afternoon.
It seems like they stole the design for the character of Hyde from Windows. I feel like.
I mean, that is such a huge jump. I love it. I hope so. Yeah, they kind of do favor each other.
The little glasses, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's Danny Masterson up to these days? He's good, right?
He's in jail?
He's on. I think he's got enough Scientology money that he's just on trial and not actually incarcerated.
Well,
should be.
But I could be wrong about that.
Good for him, or bad for him. He's bad. Okay.
Let's all send him bad vibes.
Bad vibes.
I hope the thing happens to him. Maybe the thing will happen to him.
I hope the thing happens.
Go down like the guy in the remake who becomes the double-faced monster. That's like the one time that it's like, oh, here's a new type of kill that we haven't seen before.
Except it's not. It's just prequel stuff. It's just like, you want to see how they got the two-faced monster thing? Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, but just that sequence is actually kind of horrifying. Actually, kind of turns my stomach a bit and makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's they're explaining the body that they find in this movie, right?
Yep.
With that scene. Mm-hmm.
It is, and John's not wrong. It is prequel shit. It's here's how Indiana Jones got his whip type of thing. But other than that, a lot of the kills in that movie are just like the thing creates like a spiked tail that it rams through people. It's like xenomorph kills rather than thing grotesque, unsettling assimilation vibes. The way
they just didn't need it. Like another thing that's dumb about just the prequel, if we're going to talk about it a little bit, is they didn't need the prequel. They could have just done a sequel. Have people go out to this site and discover what happened to things frozen there? They just make the sequel or something. I think that they had talked about that for a while, that they were going to do like a TV series that was going to be a sequel. But the prequel, then they changed it all to where in this movie they're all Norwegian in that camp.
Sort of.
Everything is Norwegian. Yeah. Isn't that right?
Yeah. They bring in a couple of Americans to be the stars.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about in the thing. This movie we're talking about is they go to the camp and nothing's in English. Everybody there is Norwegian, right? And so they just for the kind of retroed it for the prequel, said, "Hey, Mary Elizabeth Winstead's here."
Yeah, and Joel Edgerton are like brought in from the outside, and they don't end the movie in the camp there. So, I mean, they eventually do like cross all the T's and dot all the I's to make sure that the basics of the continuity line up. But it's just, why do you need that?
Yeah, I forgot. I haven't seen it since it came out, I guess. So
skip it. Don't come back to it. It's no good. Yeah.
Well, it sheds light on what this movie does right, I think, in certain ways.
That's what all these Carpenter remakes do, I think. They're just like, oh, you thought that was just sort of a good B movie? No, he's really, really good at making movies. Here's the proof. Here's somebody else trying.
An amazing storyteller. Yeah, and has great instincts. Good director. His we had talked about right before the podcast about the Fog remake, and say what you will about the Fog, and you guys did say what you will about the Fog. That remake is just it's so dire. It's so bad.
It's real bad.
It's the worst film I think we're going to talk about in any way during this series.
Who's the star of that movie? Who's the lead? The guy from Smallville?
Tom Welling and Maggie Grace.
And Maggie Grace from Lost.
Tom Welling. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tom Welling in there. Selma Blair, right? And
she kind of comes out the best.
Selma Blair definitely is the only one who doesn't embarrass themselves. No, but the Thing remake / prequel, actually, I don't think it's a bad monster movie if you could divorce it from John Carpenter's The Thing, but obviously you can't do that. It's going out of its way to meld them like that two-faced beast thing that we're talking about. So it's really hard to do that. And you're right. It shines a light on especially how much better the ensemble in the Carpenter version is. That there's so many interchangeable Norwegians in that movie that I never get a handle on.
There's something special about him as a filmmaker. I think, like you said, you look at the remakes of his work, and it's like the Halloween movies, right?
Yeah.
All the remakes or the sequels to the Halloween movies, like the first one is so far the best movie, and even the ones that try to kind of imitate the first movie just don't get it right. Like it's kind of never. And I know that franchise has its fans, but I just feel like it's never been good again, really. Maybe Season of the Witch, because that's the one that didn't.
It doesn't even count.
Really try to didn't try to ape Carpenter, but they just all the movies fall in love with Michael Myers too much, except that first one.
Well, that is a thing where you've got one that's so good that the rest of the films kind of suffer in comparison. Other horror genre franchises don't really have a film as great as Halloween to compare it to. I mean, the original Elm Street, is pretty good. It's not as good as Halloween.
Sure.
But, so I think that does it a bit of a disservice, or the franchise a disservice. There's Halloweens I like other than the first one. But, yeah, I mean, come on. There's only one great
Can't you just allow
Halloween.
me to be mad at the Halloween franchise? I just want to be cranky about it.
I think there's room for that.
You didn't like when Busta Rhymes karate fought Michael Myers?
Oh, I forgot about that one. Never mind. It cancels all the things I said.
He went flip mode on him. No, I think there's something else, though, that I keep harping on with these John Carpenter movies, is that he's so good at endings that it is really hard to make a series of movies after, there's nowhere to go but down from the ending of the original Halloween. And doing any follow-up to The Thing has to sort of answer the open-ended question at the end of this movie, which can only detract from it, in my opinion. I mean, maybe it would be worth cataloging a couple of the ways you could do this concept wrong, as evidenced by that prequel. But I also think, okay, let me tell it to you like this. So I saw this movie on the big screen last week. It happened to be playing by my house. It was fantastic. So I couldn't really answer the Blu-ray question because I saw an old print of it and it looked great. But it is a movie that is one of my absolute favorites ever made. I think it's, I would put it in the top 10 movies ever made as far as I'm concerned. However, I realized watching the movie, it's probably only the fifth or sixth time I've seen it over the course of 20 odd years, which is an odd thing to say for a movie that I praise this highly otherwise. And I think there's part of me that doesn't want to become so familiar with this that I can sort of like call up individual like line readings and beat by beat from memory the way I can with some much worse movies. And it's because I want to resist the ability to ever fully solve like the order of operations here. Every time I watch the thing, I want to be a little unsure of who actually gets assimilated first and when everybody happens to everything. And I know that people have dug into it, and I think there's a consensus that like Norris is the first person to get assimilated or whatever. But I'm so glad that he didn't use one of the actors for that silhouette in the dog scene, and that we never learned who did the blood or how Fuchs died, or all the way to the ending, who's who. Well, so to wrap that up. One of the bad ways to do this, you imagine the Christopher Nolan version of this, where he would have a full-blown, like, conspiracy theory board with the twine and the cards mapping out exactly who gets assimilated when, and you'd be able to solve that version of the movie. And Carpenter says, fuck that. That it's about vibes.
McCready's version of this is just to keep drinking. Like, he doesn't make a board. He just keeps grabbing a bottle, and but he is the one of the people that is kind of like ahead. There's two people that are kind of ahead of the game. Oh, three maybe. I guess Fuchs, Blair, and McCready, right?
A little, more than the rest. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always still behind fundamentally, though. They're behind the thing.
They totally are. Yeah, the thing's in short. I actually saw this at a few years ago at a. I live in Atlanta, and they showed it at a theater downtown, and I was all excited and reverent, and the audience was laughing at the beginning, and there's some funny stuff in this movie, but they were laughing at because they thought it was cheesy, and I got super super angry. I was like kind of like puffed up chest, like what's happening? How dare they? We're in church, and
But it's a revival crowd. It's probably just there's an excitement. They
were trying to. Yeah. I was being unfair. They were there to have fun, and to be fair to give the movie its credit. Like by the end of the movie, that was all gone. Everybody was just enraptured. So that was just me being an idiot. But it was cool to go see it on the big screen. I will say that I've only ever seen it at home. You know what
the best thing about seeing it in a theater was? It's a revival. It was a packed house revival thing, so everybody's big fans here, like I said, except when that dog transformation happens, it was like its own version of the blood test. It was so easy to spot like the four people in the theater who were brought by their friend or significant other and had never seen it before.
Oh, that's rad.
Like, like there was one so 2 cool. rows in front of me, and just like hands to the face, and could not believe what they were seeing. And it was made the whole thing worthwhile, even if the rest wasn't great.
I love the dogs in that scene, like the little shots of the one dog trying to chew its way out.
Oh God, what a shot!
The one dog getting hosed down by all the substance,
by the slime. It's so upsetting.
Yeah. And then
it's not hurting the dog, but you can tell the dog hates it. It's a real dog.
Richard Mauser, who plays the dog wrangler character, his whole mode in this, like his whole character is protect the dogs. He loves the dogs. So anytime anything is happening with the dog, he's fired up, and so then when McCready shoots the one dog, kind of to put it out of its misery, maybe by mistake, that's getting it kind of partially assimilated, Clark loses it, and so
yeah, so good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's just there's so many little character beats in this movie that are just fantastic. It just doesn't make a wrong step.
I love that Clark is not assimilated too. It's almost weird that he's not, but I think that's a really cool touch that this thing is ultimately alien. Yeah, he was alone with the dog for a while, but it didn't happen for some reason. That's great. And
then McCready shoots him, and so it's it's self-defense sort of, but it's
it is.
He
but
wasn't.
I think it is vital there to have one of the humans kill another human, to give that the paranoia some teeth. Ultimately,
yeah, totally. Yeah,
I mean, they're all dying anyway. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it would be over. So that's like, God. Okay, so like I said, this is in many ways the ultimate movie monster because it is sort of like the Xenomorph. It's got that eldritch, unknowable quality to it. It feels genuinely alien. It's conceptually terrifying on this intellectual level of not knowing who's who and all that. It's also viscerally revolting to boot. Like it skimps on neither end of the scale. It's intelligent enough to play mind games and kind of outthink you, but it's also like just nearly invulnerable as a physical threat. It's like its power levels are so completely unfair that you would almost like you can't. I think if you were trying to make this into a film series, like a Halloween series, or like this is the new Michael Myers or this is the new Freddy or whatever, you'd be like, well, no, you have to depower this somewhat because it's not just that it can look like people and it can imitate their speech and thoughts and personalities like flawlessly. It's just also unkillable essentially, and all it needs to do is touch you to doom you entirely. Like it's
I mean, you would think that it would make sense if you were going to revisit this premise to place it somewhere not the Antarctic, somewhere where
but it has to be that
place, but it kind of has to be. I mean, maybe you could do an isolated town like Tremors or something like that, and maybe that is the way to go based on sort of the punt of the 2011 version. But
it's got to be an isolated desert town, though. At most, it's got to be small.
It creates a lot of problems. This monster that are just unsolvable, because it would destroy us. It is an apocalyptic beast that is beyond us.
Yeah,
28,000 hours it only takes, right? Isn't that what Blair's little ask? He does like Ask Jeeves in this.
Right.
He's like, how screwed are we? Let me Google search this. How screwed are we? And they're like very screwed.
This is This movie is so scary. That's the thing. Like I find this film still really frightening. The Lovecraftian nature of this creature, the sort of the cosmic horror thing, it's very much like it's not very specific in the ways it's referencing Lovecraft, but it kind of has the same basic primordial terror that he's tapping into. Obviously Carpenter does In the Mouth of Madness, which is explicit Lovecraft, but this one really captures it without being too on the nose. And I think that's why it's so scary still. I've seen this movie like probably 12 times or something like that. I think it actually gets scarier the more I watch it. I still haven't quite pieced together who gets changed, but I know it's out there. But man, is it effective at just sort of... Well, I think a big part of it is that there's a building realization among the ensemble that they're fucked. They kind of know it from the beginning. They kind of see that they are completely overmatched by this thing right away. And then the smarter characters, the scholars, Blair and Fuchs, are the ones who are like, oh no, we're really fucked. We are, in fact, super
we can't
quadruple
even eat
fucked.
with this thing around,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can kind of, so Fuchs figures it out and thinks then McReady is turned. It doesn't matter. They find Fuchs after the scene when he kind of thinks that McReady might be the thing. All of a sudden, Fuchs is out of the movie. They come across his burned body. Yeah, and you're like, what happened? And it's so because cool. And so it's cool, but I think I think you can probably, and they say it. He probably took himself out. He probably burned himself.
Yeah, he probably got some on him and took.
That could be it, or he just was like, I'm done with this whole thing. I'm taking myself.
There's got to be easier ways of doing that than self-immolation.
Yeah, you think, right? Maybe he just made a mistake.
I mean, there's the Norwegian guy, too, apparently decided to take himself out by slashing both wrists and his own throat to the spine, which is pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Yeah, you want this to be unsolvable in that way. And it's... You're right, that no matter how many times you watch this, there's almost like there's no real relief from the terror. Like even like with something like Halloween, it's okay. I know the order and the pacing of the kills now, and I'm kind of ready for what happens. But there are these open questions that you still don't know. Is Palmer the thing yet in this scene? Is Norris the thing in this scene?
It gets under your skin. Yeah, it's just a great queasy premise. And there's another thing, which is like, do you know if you're the thing? Do you know when you've been assimilated? That's a question the movie doesn't even try to answer. It just lets you kind of figure that one out and ponder it a little bit.
Yeah, because Palmer has a personality. Like Palmer is making jokes, but he's apparently been assimilated. So
is it play acting Palmer's sense of humor? Does it carry that over, or does Palmer just Palmer?
I think it does take over when it takes you over. Like I think the original story, which I have never read, it's called Out There or something.
Who Goes There?
Who Goes There?
Yeah,
Who Goes There? That's right. Who Goes There?
Good title.
It's very similar to this. Like I think the monster is. When it takes you over, it takes over your personality. It takes over it knows you. It has your thoughts and stuff like that. So yeah, now it has Palmer's sense of humor and it's busting great jokes,
Well,
so it kind of makes you like the thing a little bit,
And even when you think, there's always points too where people who you're pretty sure are thinged, if you like try and break it down, act in ways that don't seem to be thing-like. Like Norris, who's definitely turned by that point, turns down the gun and the offer to be in charge. And you kind of wonder, well, I mean, I guess if I was trying to make sense of it in my brain, I think that Norris is the first one affected by the dog, but maybe the dog doesn't want to like risk having a big violent assimilation there. So he just goes in and licks him so it can be a slow process of taking him over. And Norris is still like partway there, pretty far along into the movie, but there's no way to actually discern these things for sure, which is why, going back to it, you never get settled in and feel comfortable in this. I mean, on top of which, it's the most inhospitable environment on Earth.
One thing that's interesting is me, and this I didn't remember. I'm always like, did they find the ship? Did they find the UFO? And they do. And I was like, they don't go in. Did they go in there? And they don't.
No.
Yeah.
It's like they're walking toward the hatch of this gigantic UFO, and they don't go in. They don't show it. And that must have been like. I bet in the prequel they go in.
They do.
Sure do.
The whole
Yeah,
ending confrontation is inside the UFO.
Of course it does.
It looks like a spaceship. Yeah.
Yeah. But just, I mean, we're still trying to wrap our heads or our arms around this alien monster thing. And it's, they said it's incredible because this movie is so intimate and claustrophobic in its scope, but also it's apocalyptic in its stakes. So that it's not just whether these guys live or die, it's also whether the human race is doomed. And, there's a great like fan theory I've seen thrown out there, actually, that is, I don't know if it helps the movie, but it's a funny dark joke to think about, which is at the start of this movie, Windows is saying how they haven't been able to get anybody on the radio for 2 weeks. And so the implication is, well, what if a piece of it got out of the Norwegian camp 2 weeks ago, and these are actually like the last people on Earth already before this movie even starts.
I mean, that would not be a bad reveal, honestly. Like, you can't beat the ending of this movie, but like, it's not a bad ending either.
I think it goes a little too far into like Twilight Zone, M. Night Shyamalan, I don't know, Tales from the Crypt even type of.
Well, that's the thing
dark
about
joke.
this movie, though. It is kind of an old school premise. It is a version of the 1950s alien invasion story that is just plussed up in every conceivable way. Like, you say what you will about the 1950s. Say the original thing, the thing from another world, the Howard Hawks film. They're kind of fun. They're not scary generally. They're kind of enjoyable in sort of just their pulp sensibilities. They're not going to frighten you. And this one basically
maybe if in the 50s they would have.
Maybe. I guess so. I mean, everyone was scared of the Reds coming up, and like I guess that's a quadrant of that you can't really duplicate anymore. It reminds me, I did see a take on the Carpenter film that it is a communism metaphor, but it's about how battling communism would ensure mutual destruction for both parties.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that.
Kind of.
Carpenter's not the type to really like.
No, he doesn't
think in metaphors to that level. But
I mean, they live is there. They live is well. There's nothing sneaky about they live, though. I guess
exactly. Yeah. it's very unsubtle in its satire. And that's the great thing about this. In ways, this is sort of elevated horror before that label existed, because we can talk about it in a way where, like I said, I know that you can make this mistake because I did mistake this for a very cerebral, paranoid thriller. And when it's this masterpiece of tension and paranoia.
It kind of is that, though. It kind of is that with the other thing. Yeah.
But it's also completely unapologetic about being just the nastiest monster movie ever made. It holds absolutely nothing back in terms of viscera. This is not a subtle movie. It's ambiguous in a lot of things, but it is not subtle, and it is not restrained it's not holding back the monster from us.
Yeah.
It's holding back answers, but it's not holding back the monster.
I mean, but they're not important answers at the end of the day. You know, I mean,
right.
Well, you can kind of have fun, like imagining, like we were talking about, like, well, do you know if you're the thing? But, you know, you cotton pretty early, like, oh, they're all fucked. Like, they're all dead. I mean, I guess you're watching this movie in 1982. Movies don't end this way, so maybe not. You're thinking Kurt's going to defeat it. And they did shoot the ending where Kurt survives. Like, they shot an ending where he's rescued, and they give him a blood test so the audience is sure that he's not the thing.
Oh, really? They shot? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, that sucks.
Well,
I think it's
they knew not to use it.
You had to do, to get funding. You had to do that.
Yeah.
But even doing the love conquers all ending or whatever, you know, the happy ending, it almost feels like that would feel so false with this anyway. Because it's like, well, you only need a couple of cells of this thing to survive in the ice. And we could never be sure. You're certainly not destroying every cell of this beast with dynamite. You know.
Let's say it goes against like the script where they're always saying we can't leave. I mean, they all kind of agree at the end that they can't leave. Like, even if they were to be rescued, that they can't go. I mean, they have to destroy the camp. They have to die out there.
Yeah.
They're all in agreement.
Yeah.
You know? And so especially the three at the end that trying to blow up the camp. They kind of, and they lose Keith David's character, Childs. They don't know where he is, but yeah, they're all like, so that's weird that I guess it's not weird that they shot it. It just goes against the dialogue in the movie.
I mean, I could see it ending with a big question mark, like, well, that means it's still out there somewhere. Hope the Arctic doesn't stop being cold. You know, it's the end of the Blob. That's very 1950s.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously.
The Blob also probably starts with a UFO landing on Earth, right?
I think it does.
That one probably okay. I think it's okay to show the asteroid for that one. But
the Blob is, it's definitely the Blob's mean like this movie. This movie's mean as well. Like these are mean. Those are both mean movies.
That's a movie that has a successful remake.
It actually has a really good remake.
Yeah, that one's gross.
By being real gross. Yeah.
So just like this one.
Super gross, super funny, and you know, I mean, come on, Kevin Dillon's in it. When does he ever turn in a false performance, false note? You know,
never. No,
that movie might be the closest to matching the Thing remake. Now that I think about it,
The Fly.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a better.
They all have sort of body horror elements to them too. I feel like. Not The Fly most of all. I think The Fly is the only one that's proper body horror because the Thing stuff, it's an alien body for the most part. So it doesn't.
Shit does happen to human bodies in this pretty good though.
Yeah, but for a full blown body horror for me, for Cronenberg or even I guess the first Alien to agree, it's like you're still human, you're still you, and you're seeing your body turn against you. Whereas by the time your body's turning against you in this, like you're entirely the Thing. Is what it feels like to me on a subjective level.
Yeah, but still getting your face, you know, getting fingers melding into your face is pretty gross too.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's elements of it in there.
This movie's funny. I think it has some really funny moments in it, and it's also has a great Kurt Russell like cool performance. Like,
I'm kind of team Childs though. I think Childs is right to be skeptical
cool too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's just kind of an asshole though. That's why he's skeptical.
But McCready's just kind of an asshole too. I mean,
sure, yeah.
He's our asshole in that we're introduced to him first, but I don't know that he does anything like morally better than Childs at any point, or that Childs does anything really bad. Everybody just kind of like makes a mention to like, yeah, but Childs, you're an asshole, right? Everybody knows that.
I mean, it just sort of seems like power dynamics, you know, guys, you know, kind of braving each other, just running up against one another, just to be dicks. Just why not? You know, why not just go through some sort of masculine rights who were at the bottom of the world, stuck here doing nothing?
It doesn't need to. It does suggest like certain things, the dynamic that, but you know, there's like Palmer's the other helicopter pilot, right? I think, and they don't trust him as much as McCready. They think McCready's, and he's like, all right, you know, I think he volunteers to go out to the Norwegian camp, and they're like, no. He goes, well, thanks for thinking about it, because they say no right away. And you know, it's
they,
just, and, you know,
they trust
child's
a
in-
drunk over a pothead to pilot this.
Exactly.
That seems to be all it is.
But you know, there's obviously people don't love childs there. But you know, that stuff that it's just all just so natural in the movie, those relationships, you know, and as of course the paranoia sets in, all that stuff just comes out more and more, and it's highlighted the antagonism between Childs and McCready. It's great that it ends between those two too.
Yeah.
Because that final scene is perfect. You know, it's so great.
I remember first time I saw this, I remember saying out loud, wouldn't it be amazing if this movie ended right now? And then 10 seconds later it does.
Of course it does.
Yeah. Wow, what an ending.
Yeah. Because Carpenter knows how to end shit.
And I bet that's one of the reasons it got negative review. I think it feels like it's so ambiguous, right? And so I think people sometimes tend, obviously, to go, well, that sucks. There's no answers. Like, where's the final answer? I hate it. And it's so cool that over time, you know, people think that's one of the best endings of all time. You know, it's certainly iconic. So anyway, it would have been better if it, you know, obviously they rescued McCready though. 'Cause it's super cool. You know, they should have come in, dropped a ladder down from a helicopter. You know.
Yeah, but I think he's the thing at the end.
Interesting.
I think
Childs
you
is
might
the-
be right. I think you might be right. No. I think McCready might be the thing at the end, yeah. But it doesn't matter if he is, right? It doesn't really matter, yeah.
That is what it comes down. Well, okay. So this is the thing, I guess. God, I keep saying this is a thing on the thing episode,
yeah.
but the ending for most of the last 20 years, I would have told you that I think the ending's probably that they're both human, and they just can't be sure, and that's sort of the ultimate irony there. In a way, it's
I think probably.
In a way, it's the saddest of the endings. But watching through this last time, I was like, all right, if I'm actually trying to like solve this, it does seem like, well, one, that passing the bottle is a kind of a giveaway that like they're not, they had this quarantine protocol of not sharing food or drink, and now they're going to share a drink, and McCready hands him the bottle and looks at him until he takes a drink, and like there's a little thump on the soundtrack when he takes the drink, and then McCready starts chuckling to himself. Like, so you can view that as this is a test of McCready saying like, oh, since he took a drink, that proves that Childs is the thing because the thing doesn't care about being infected. It already is. But I think it plays more to me the other way of, ha, I gotcha. Because also if Childs is the thing, Childs has the flamethrower on. It doesn't need to be coy about anything. McCready's unarmed at that point. So it doesn't seem to make sense to me that Childs would be the thing there at all.
I heard an interview with Carpenter where he's like, you know, why does the film end that way? And he's like, well, the other way is they both light each other on fire, and that didn't seem right.
Yeah.
I mean, could have been cool, I guess. I think it's what you're used to at this point. You're like, hey, how come they're McCready like throws dynamite at Childs, they stick a dynamite at him. I think it doesn't really matter. Like I said, it doesn't really matter, you know, if they're the thing or if they're not, or if they're human. At that point, it's over.
Yeah,
right?
well, he's got that line. I don't think either of us are in a condition to. If one of us has a surprise for you, I don't think anyone's in a condition to do anything about it. It's like they've accepted death.
Yeah, except that's not really true because Childs has a flamethrower on. He could torch McCready right there.
But they're dying. There's no heat coming. They're all messed up. It's over for them. As humans,
it would be interesting to think, as smart as Carpenter is, like, and he is, like, you know, his instincts are incredible. I wonder if he thought of how that ending can play tricks. Like, I wonder if he has his own version of what it is and kind of what came out of it. Kind of more of the ambiguity, or people specifically the bottle thing. I wonder if he even thought about that, because at the end you could just go, they're sharing a drink because it's over.
Yeah,
you know, like
that's how I always took it. Actually,
they're tired.
That's how I took it for years. Except there's the little thump on the soundtrack of the bass kicks in when he takes the sip.
Soundtrack
that accentuates
soundtrack amazing,
it.
by the way. Soundtrack's amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, Morricone and aping Carpenter, so he's like a simulating Carpenter, like, you know, it's
really cool.
Even that's cool,
it's
right?
Really cool, yeah.
That's a great connection.
But it's like that soundtrack got like I was reading, it got a Razzie like nomination.
What
like people hated it.
What
the hell? You know, it's so good.
All right, we're circling all the way back to the beginning now, but I still cannot wrap my head around this. Like, and it's obviously, I've been looking at some other stuff recently of things that just got absolutely vitriolic reactions from fandoms. And a lot of the stuff I'm looking at, it's the ending of big, long-running series that people have invested in, and then they feel betrayed by the ending in some way. And there's just this level of vitriol and just disgust with the creators. And once you get a little bit of distance from like that thing, it starts to feel like, okay, you're this is sort of revealing of the audience as well, and like you're not going to get that level of absolute hatred of the person, of the George Lucas or whoever betrayed your trust, if they didn't hit a nerve in some way. And it feels like the thing hit a nerve with some of these critics. It made them unsettled, and they did not appreciate it. And so I guess people settle on different things because it's probably a combination of nerves. Like you said, this is very bleak. I think you said it's sad earlier. I'm not even sure it's sad, but it is so bleak that it almost just goes straight past sad and into existential despair. Yeah. It's not sentimental, you know?
Uh-huh. It's one of those things. I remember I watched, there's a movie I love, Bottle Rocket, which is Wes Anderson's first film. I love it.
A lot like the thing, yes.
It's very similar. And but I remember seeing it in the theater after it and kind of got okay reviews, you know, and I'm thinking it had like made some noise at festivals, I think, at that point. I saw it in the theater and I didn't like it. I thought it was okay, you know, and then I kept thinking about it for like a year, and it came out like on VHS, and I bought it and I loved it. By the time I saw it again, I loved it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes when something has like a different tone to it, is doing new things, even though, I mean, you could argue that Carpenter's just doing like basic storytelling, you know, stuff that's been done for ages, but like it's a different thing it was doing. And I mean, you could say that to Blade Runner in a way too, is it was so different than what was out there at the time. It just confused people, or it just took forever to catch up to it, or not even that long, but it took some time to catch up to it, right? And so maybe that's what was happening. You know, Carpenter dropped this,
but
you know, the beautiful piece of storytelling on the public, and they're like, this sucks because there's gross stuff in it, you know?
Yeah, I'd say that the big distinction between the reception to this and Blade Runner is that Blade Runner had to get recut a couple of times, and like, in order to be reevaluated, they had to tinker with it.
Right.
They never touched the thing, and the people came around. People were assimilated. Right. The monster stayed the same. But yeah, I think that's the area that it was so revolting. I think that people didn't like how it made them feel, either on a sort of cerebral, intellectual level, or a gut level, or both. And so they hit on things like, you get things like that, calling it the moron movie of the 80s, and it's like, it's almost like the effects were so gross that the critics' only like context for that level of disgust was for like much dumber splatter movies, more like something like a Dead Alive. That's you know, and they didn't want to. They couldn't process that it was in a movie that had some more elevated elements to it, some genuine like story to tell. So they just drug it into this other category. Yeah,
horror especially is seen as lesser even today. Yeah, back then, but even today, you know. So like, it's easy to say it's trash, right? Or it's not a, you know, hey, you know, they're just messing around with effects, and you know, write your review real quick and get it out there and move on to the next movie.
If you dismiss it as trash, you don't have to reckon with it at all. You know, I like that. I like that take. It seems like this film does some explanation is needed, because the greatness of this film is so self-evident when you watch it, and yeah, those early reviews just do not make sense when you look at them now. It's just like, what were you watching?
Maybe people didn't like they were really thrown off when remember for the blood test they're slicing their thumbs. That grosses me out still.
Why do it that way?
That's what turned people off.
Use your forearm. It's just, yeah.
Or your pinky. Like this, the pad of your thumb is what you need the most for.
Yeah, Windows really goes in. He's like starts at his nail. I'm like, dude, you don't have to go that hard on your thumb, you know? Jeez.
Maybe he's just genuinely curious what he's gonna find in there, and wants to see if there's tendrils.
Windows has a hilarious death in this. Like, let's just get it out of the way. His death is ridiculous.
I don't know if hilarious. I mean, it's
well, this the way it's the Evil Dead. It's Evil Deadish.
Yeah, it is
his death.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. Yeah, most people don't get that level of ridiculous. I think he's the only one that really gets kind of the
it's chomped
amusement park treatment. Yeah, he does.
I don't know. Dr. Copper, similar.
That's right. He does get a bit. Yeah, you're right. Never mind.
No, that's another thing that's so great about this movie. Right? It's sort of the ultimate horror movie to me. It's got two of the best jump scares the genre has ever produced. Between the defibrillator scene and the blood test scene, and they're not the fake it was a cat type of jump scare. It is the monster actually jumping out, and those scenes are so masterfully constructed that almost no matter how many times you've seen the movie, it still sends you back in your seat a bit.
You look forward to it when you watch the blood test scene. You look forward to it because McCready's so sure. He's so sure that's Gary.
Yeah,
and he just wants to just be so right. It's perfect. The way that you're right. Well, the way they construct that scene is incredible. And you look forward to it. You look forward to the blood jumping out of the petri dish.
Yeah,
and Palmer going. Collapsing into this alien form. And then, of course, Donald Moffat's reaction to after everything is back to normal, his immortal line, he screams at them.
Yeah, well, and even the defibrillator scene also ends with that sort of the best gag of the movie, which is, "You've got to be fucking kidding me."
Palmer.
He's very much the thing at that point, too, of course.
The thing is a snitch.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's so hard to wrap your head around this thing because nobody even when you know they're infected, they don't act the way you think they're supposed to, or the thing is supposed to. And that's part of what I love about this.
Yeah, he's not like us. You see.
Yeah.
God, that's a good bit of exposition right there. Blue collar guys.
I love that Blair is making. I love that Blair's making a mini UFO.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
You always forget that.
I always forget it, yeah.
That is maybe the goofy... I guess the two goofy things in this movie are both Blair-related with his computer simulation, and then that he's making it's like he's trying to fly back into the Howard Hawks version of the movie. He's making like a 1949 UFO.
Yeah, he's making he's building a UFO. Why not, man? Let's just get into some spare parts. I mean, it's funny because he's sabotaging things. So, that Blair's sabotaging things. And you think, he's sabotaging things because he doesn't want anybody to leave. But he might have been sabotaging things to grab parts to make this mini UFO. It's like another thing that taking parts from the other machines, So
it could be both.
I don't know. Brimley's really good in this movie, too.
Man.
Really, really good.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I mean, he's that Lovecraftian scholar
really
archetype. And I think he's really fun casting for that. Are we agreed that when they come back to him to do the blood test and he's just like, I'm good now. I want to go back in. I'm good. That he's the thing there, right?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Mm-hmm. He's got the noose. Yeah. He's got the noose hanging there. Like he's thinking about just sitting there. No one ever talks about it. He just has a noose in there with him. But yeah, they can find Blair out there because he goes nuts. Yep. He starts to kill all the Rick, but they can find him out into the shed. And yeah, his little speech when McCready comes out to check on him and he's like, he's very pleading. He's like, let me, calm though. Let me back in, guys. I'm good now.
Yeah, it feels so different than the rest of his performance.
Window on him.
Yeah, great sort of the comedic take of just the slowly closing the door on somebody type of beat.
No, I love it because he's like pleading. He's sitting in his chair. He's pleading with McCready to let him back in. Kind of like, let me back in. And then McCready starts to leave and he goes, hey, hold on for a second. And so then, okay. And he just says the same thing. Yeah. Hey, let me back in.
Yeah.
Just great. This is great. Well, doesn't have any change of course. Doesn't have any new argument. Just wants to repeat it closer to McCready.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about this, we were saying earlier how much of a mistake it would be to introduce the characters before we meet the thing, and the fact that we have so little backstory on these guys is great because it means we don't really have a sense of who's acting unusual. At any point.
Yeah.
And
you don't. And it works like we're talking about. Works so many levels. Like in that scene, he does say to McCready, "Watch Clark." He says, "Watch Clark.
Watch him close."
Right? Yeah, watch him close. And so that sets its own little paranoia momentum going on between distrust against Clark. And if Blair's the thing at that point, right?
Yeah,
he's just playing these little games. Yeah. Oh, more power to the thing. He's outsmarting everybody.
Yeah, and it's also another false trail for us, like that Gary in the blood test scene. That it's pointing our attentions here while the thing is operating over here. I mean, it's, you know, in addition to everything, it's also this like Agatha Christie kind of drawing room mystery type of thing, and it's great at that.
Yeah, there's 10 Little Indians quality to it. It's
yeah.
I mean, the Hateful Eight is Tarantino says that it's just the thing. We're just doing the thing here, which
but it's kind of a lesser version of the thing because the evil gang is not assimilating people throughout the course of that movie.
The Hateful Eight has leftover thing music in it, right?
I guess they kind of assimilate Bruce Dern. Yeah. Never mind.
They do.
I was upset to see the when they have to light windows on fire because he gets killed, but then he starts to change.
Yes. I
noticed that they had to light the game shelf on fire as well. Like they had a board game shelf. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, the amusements that they have. They
got a lot of games in that. They got Asteroids arcade machine, which is cool, ping pong table, and a bunch of games. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You think it would have been too on the nose for them to be playing Clue or the beginning instead of ping pong?
Brimley playing Clue? That would be incredible. He could be a character in Clue.
Exactly.
A born Colonel Mustard. Yes.
In the gritty Clue reboot. Yeah.
Is he still with us? No, he just recently passed, right?
He passed in like 2020, I think, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. On our show we did Hard Target where he's in it with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh yes.
And there's a famous shot of Brimley in that movie where he's on a horse. He's on a horseback, riding, and the flames behind him. It's like incredible.
He's playing a Cajun, right?
Oh, Uncle Duvet, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Yeah, But yeah, Brimley always he just was always significant. Man. Like he was so good in everything.
I love him in
always the same.
I love him in
always
The Firm. If you remember The Firm, he plays
he
plays like a fixer, like a criminal mafia fixer. He's comes in and blackmails Tom Cruise like, it'd be a shame if your wife found out about your infidelities. It's always good casting. And I love when he's not playing a kindly old man, which he kind of doesn't do that much. No, he's
very intimidating. He's very authoritative.
Never really did Santa Claus or anything. I guess Cocoon is kind of the thing he became most famous for. But mostly he's in shit like The Thing in The Firm, where he's playing the heavy.
He was on a TV show where he was fatherly. Like they got him on, like he wasn't just always cranky all the time. But yeah, most of the time in movies.
Are you just talking about those diabetes commercials?
Iconic.
I
think Brimley was on Twitter. I think he was like kind of a Twitter presence to his death, like until his death. So he was tweeting. Yeah.
That's
what do you guys think that Knowles doesn't get a death scene here? Everybody else, what happens to him. Knowles just kind of walks out. T.K. Carter's character.
Yeah.
Well,
it's so eerie. It's so
that's
eerie.
What's cool
I think,
about
how
it.
they handle it.
Yeah.
Like it's neat that they can just do that. That they can just be like, well, this character just disappears and you don't know what happens to him. You can assume the worst and just well, the thing probably got him. Apparently, they ran out of money and they didn't shoot his death scene. It was intended.
Yeah, but it works so well. I think I want one of those. It adds that level of just there's some unanswered questions.
Yeah, you get that with Fuchs too. Yeah,
you do get that with Fuchs, but there's enough of them that you don't feel like it's skimped out on monster effects, even though they ran out of money for that one.
Right.
You don't feel like you don't get enough disgusting visceral kills in this movie. So I think it works out just fine.
I found I found something on Wikipedia about it, which is that a brief mention, which is they cut the scene of Knowles and the box thing. So whatever that means.
Box?
Yeah.
The box thing.
Oh, so he had like a confrontation with a different form of the thing, I guess. The box thing. Well, we can all wonder what that meant.
It's fun to speculate. Yeah, they never shot
the
it.
Other thing, or the other thing I heard about them cutting was a scene where they burn Palmer's weed plants because they're hypothesizing about, can this thing take over plants too? Is that possible? And which is another reason why it sort of has to be the Arctic, right? Like you put this thing anywhere near civilization and it can just take over the grass of the yard and it's done.
I guess it could. It's life.
Palmer
right?
he definitely is. He definitely has a gigantic joint in this movie, that he is toking on. Yeah.
But they're the ass end of the world. What do you want them to do?
And he's the thing at that point, I imagine. So that means the thing is enjoying smoking a joint.
I don't think he's the thing at that point. But it's you can't. That's what we keep saying. There's no way of proving it one way or the other.
I hope he is what I'm saying. I hope the thing got high. Is what
Enjoy it. But I don't want
explains
to
a lot of the movie. If the thing is high, it explains very much what's happening in this film.
Well, and the thing's varying levels of intelligence too. I think that you can sort of hypothesize that depending on how much of a creature it's assimilated, a smaller piece is not the blood is not smart enough to do any elaborate deceptions.
They should have a horrifying line where someone goes, "Who got into the Fritos?" or something like that. Like it's just like a whole discussion. Anyway, so
well, that ambiguity, just not knowing how this thing operates, not knowing if Palmer believes he's Palmer until the blood test goes wrong, not knowing if actually is the thing playing these games, if they're talking to the thing when Brimley's trying to get back into the group, or if it is just still Blair who doesn't realize he's the thing, but is acting in the thing's benefit. Like that's sort of the creepiest thing of all about this. Like that none of them actually know whether they're assimilated or not. They might be sure of it, but they don't know. I think maybe that's why the horror of it holds up more than any other reason. Well, I don't know. The monster effects are pretty good too, but
the monster, the paranoia,
but that paranoia,
honestly,
not trusting anybody, including yourself, I think is what makes this an all-timer.
The question about whether you're assimilated has never been as compelling to me for whatever reason. I kind of figure like, in order for any of this to work at all for me, the answer has to be, the thing knows when it's like that they do know, and they just are doing imitation. However, I don't even need that. The not being able to trust other people, the people around you. And the great thing about this too is like, it's not like the Hateful Eight, by saying, because of the assimilation factor, and because you have something like the blood test even that definitively clears a person in one scene. But just because you definitively cleared somebody in one scene does not mean that they are safe to trust in the next scene.
Right.
As soon as the camera cuts away, it's everybody's back in question again, up to and including McCready, like we talked about. And that's part of what makes this conceptual monster so fucking cool.
What was the test they used? Do you remember in the prequel?
It's bad.
What was their version of it?
They checked to see who has metal fillings in their teeth because they decided that the thing cannot assimilate metal.
Yeah, you know what's not very visually interesting? Watching people look into each other's
dental
mouths.
Exams.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad concept in that they have to get like right up close to them and like in sort of like tendril distance. So it should work better than it does, but they just kind of mess up the basics of the monster in that one. One other thing that I love about this movie, and I don't know if this is something that Carpenter could even really plan for, but it's nice serendipity with how things have panned out over the years, is how like the meta casting of people doesn't really tip you off to anything. Like, you kind of know Kurt Russell is the hero, right?
Yeah, it's not an Ellen Ripley situation. He's the hero. Yeah.
Right, but you would never guess that if you're saying, all right, who would be the last three standing here from a 2020 perspective or whatever, that you'd say Kurt Russell for sure. Maybe you could say Keith David, but you wouldn't be like, oh, well, Donald Moffat and Knowles, like Gary Knowles are definitely going to be the last men standing in this camp, and the way Knowles almost doesn't get the dignity of a proper kill scene even adds into that, but Brimley is sort of off the board halfway through this movie, and he pops back up in the end in the thing for him. But the people who you think of as being, you might think from Donald Moffat's typecasting that a big part of this conflict of this movie is going to be how he's like an ineffective leader, and McCready has to sort of like battle him for control of the situation. But that's never quite what it is. It never doesn't really develop that way. There's a little nod to it, but Gary's ultimately a lot more reasonable about, I can see how none of you guys can trust me, so I'm going to hand over this gun as a proof that you can. And Childs, I guess, being the other one, like Keith David now is sort of an icon. He is in my heart anyway.
That's the thing.
Of course, he is. Yeah.
But he's not super involved throughout the movie. Like you don't really get a sense of who's going to last longer based on who's the bigger star. Other than Kurt Russell, I suppose.
Yeah, like they don't ever do something. So that just gives the only part that stuck out to me this time at the end when it's Knowles and Gary, in the basement with McCready, and then they're like, let's split up and like put the dynamite. That that was like, oh, there's the cliche, right? Let's split up at the moment of climax, or the moment of climax. Excuse me, guys. But it sounds very strange.
No cuddling for Justin.
But they are within eye shot of each other. Like so. Even that, like, is handled pretty smartly. Like, they do still see each other. They just have to get this work done.
They're also knowing they're going to die at that point. They're just, yeah.
I guess what I was trying to say is, like, I think the characters kind of, you're saying Brimley, is taken off the board. Keith David is not in a lot of scenes. Like, he's in and out. It's just like, it gives the movie the opportunity to kind of create its own, its own paranoia. You keeps you guessing about what characters are doing when they're not on screen, and are they being assimilated? Like, it's not showing us that, so
right.
That's pretty cool. But so I thought the one false moment was that part kind of at the end, but even that, like, there's McCready's like putting dynamite right next to windows right next to Knowles at the end. So,
Fuchs kind of steps into a support role and then is immediately dead. Like, he keeps playing games with you in that way. I guess you're with McCready-ish. It wouldn't surprise you if he ends up being the thing, though.
Yeah, but
it keeps all the characters, like, they're you never get confused about who anybody is. Like, it's just it's a large group of guys too. It's a big number. It's like, I don't know how many, but
12.
You 10? Know who everybody is. Is it 10?
It's 12. Can we name all the guys? Can we name all the guys right now? Let's
McCready,
try.
Childs, Knowles, Gary, Windows, Palmer, Norris,
Clark,
Copper, Clark. I forgot about Clark.
Fuchs.
Bennings and Fuchs. That's 11, right?
That's 11. Are we missing one?
The Norwegian doesn't count.
No.
Blair. We said Blair.
Oh no,
Blair's 12.
God.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 12.
Okay.
Now, that's a good number of people. It is a lot to keep straight.
Nice
as
job,
the okay. Well, as the prequel makes clear, that it's hard to keep that number of people straight, because in that one I got, all right, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Joel Edgerton, Tormund, the wildling from Game of Thrones, and the rest.
Adebisi's in there too.
Evil scientist. Yeah, that's right. Adebisi is Joel Edgerton's sidekick. But then there's a half dozen interchangeable ones where having them assimilated has no impact. And here, every assimilation takes you by surprise and disgusts you and confuses you in varying degrees.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not even just casting, I guess. It's that you don't have a sense, just, again, outside of McCready, who we need some center for this movie, I guess. But you don't even really tip off, like, the order of who's going to die first by just the level of characterization they're getting. Because, again, Knowles is hanging around at the very end there. It's like, good for you, man. You made it way longer than any metagaming would tell me you would.
He's introduced on roller skates. Like, he's roller skating through the facility, so it's like, oh, he's dead for sure.
Right.
Pretty quickly. Yeah.
I can't even articulate why. It just feels like that's marking you. Yeah, of course. That's going to play into your death scene somehow.
It is really kind of low key one of the great ensembles of all time. I would have to say, just that they are sort of, superficially indistinguishable. A bunch of bearded dudes in their 30s. Which we don't get a lot of definition for, and yet we can kind of point out each single one and be like, track where they are, and you could figure out which one's the thing when, if you really want, but it's not for sure. It's great.
Yeah, I think it also helped. The blood test scene helps that we get to see their names written out. Like we talked about how we were watching like the Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones show, and you need to like bring up the cast list at the bottom of the screen real quick just to see how things are names or elven names are spelled, and that helps you remember.
Gwildor. Yes, got it.
Yes, right.
Okay, look,
Gwildor.
There's probably not a Gwildor. So
no, it's the guy from the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe movie.
Yes, it is.
The
Billy Barty. Yes, okay. Nice, very good.
Yeah. Sorry.
A contemporary of the thing.
Sorry.
Okay. Look, we're going on about how great this film is. I think I don't know. Do we have any final thoughts on the thing here? Do we have anything that we need to say? I think people know it's a good one at this point, right? It's just widely embraced. I would say this is like maybe right under The Shining for me, best horror film of all time. You know, it's going to be tough to beat this with the John Carpenter filmography. It's pretty much a perfect film. Pretty much, and one of the greatest things anyone's ever made.
No, for me, I don't think, I love the Thing is one of my favorite movies, I'd say. Obviously you guys, we're all film buffs, like we love movies. Alien was a huge movie for me. Aliens, huge movie for me. Evil Dead 2 is a horror movie I love a lot. But I don't list them. Like, I just love, I just know that if I met someone the other day that hasn't seen this movie, and I was like, this is a movie, when you get a chance to see it, you'll love it, But it's always kind of fun to meet people that kind of haven't seen this, and as we're getting older, right? And it's getting how old is this movie now? 40 years old.
41,
really?
Yeah.
41, yeah.
It's like you're gonna meet more and more people that haven't seen it. It's not like it's streaming, on Showtime or something, right? Maybe it is, but
no. But you also meet more people who've seen the defibrillator scene on YouTube, which is a shame. But what are you gonna do?
Have seen what on YouTube?
Just like the defibrillator scene or the blood test scene,
Right. Yeah. And so many movies have taken from this, like it's been copied, it's imitated, and
assimilated,
which makes sense because it's the Thing, right?
Right.
But it's also been parodied, like that blood test sequence. Like, it just shows, it's oft imitated and made fun of, and just kind of. But
well, because it became sort of the gold standard of a paranoid thriller, of the trust no one, who's the mole, that's now it's a genre of like party game now.
X-Files has an episode that is very much,
it's just straight up Thing. Yeah. Ice, right? It's a pretty good one too.
Is it called Ice? Yeah. But it's like,
I don't believe The Simpsons have ever done a Treehouse of Horror on The Thing, which seems like a massive oversight.
There must have been some
in the last like 10 years,
point.
Maybe. Yeah, when I stopped.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty good genre. Like, the Body Snatchers is a great, those are, and the Hidden is a good like movie similar to this. Yeah, like,
I got a soft spot for Fallen.
I like Fallen as well. Denzel.
Yeah.
Elias Coaches.
John Goodman.
Goodman in there. Yeah, it's got a great ending. That's
that
another
does
movie.
too.
That's
a
great ending. Kind of similar to The Thing in a weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think that there's something like, I would be willing to gamble, without having seen that X-Files episode, that they have to kind of pull the punch at some point too, of like,
well, of course,
I bet the Thing version there probably like knocks out Scully and impersonates her but keeps her alive separately, whereas the Thing just straight murders you as soon as it touches you. And
it's like a bloodborne virus. It's it's way less monstrous. It's like you get some of the blood on you. It's sort of an AIDS metaphor too. It's one of those.
But it would have to be less monstrous than this.
So was The Thing, apparently. The Thing was the trivia said it was kind of, they were very aware of the AIDS connection when they made the movie, which I never had heard before.
In the early days, but I guess it would have been impossible.
Yeah.
Well,
I never heard that.
I guess this is part of the thing that I was saying is
The Thing.
Yeah, it's one of the many things, the many tendrils of The Thing, is that this became the ultimate body snatcher movie in some ways, the ultimate paranoid thriller, and also, along with Alien, the ultimate sci-fi just gross out monster movie. It's operating on multiple levels at once and can stand up against anything those subgenres serve up to offer. Yes, indeed.
Okay. A masterpiece in every sense of the word. I mean, as good as it gets. Carpenter. I don't know. Is this? I mean, we have the back half of the catalog to watch here, but this is a strong contender for the best film he's made. One of the best films anyone's made. It's pretty much as good as it gets.
And he's sour. He's sour about it. I think he likes that it's being reassessed, but he's certainly still sour, I think, about its reception and what could have been had people realized at the time he was making a pretty great film.
I can't blame him for that. I mean, it would have sucked to make just an objectively great film like this, and then have everyone just dismiss it and shit on it all summer long. That would have been miserable. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I guess sorry I said this earlier, but it would have hurt enough if it just flopped at the box office. But the fact that movie buffs and critics brought the knives out for it, like that's got to hurt even more. And so I don't blame him for holding a bit of a grudge to this day.
He lost Firestarter, which was supposed to be his next film as a result of this. Traded it out for Christine, which, I don't know. I think that's a bit of a...
I think that's trading down within the Stephen King pantheon, but
I disagree.
You guys can...
Firestarter is...
Yeah, okay.
I like that. I do like that movie a lot. And I think he does a great job with it.
He would have made Firestarter a better film, that's for sure.
Firestarter is not a great movie for sure, but the remake with Zac Efron is 5 stars, right? Like I didn't see it yet, but you guys don't spoil it.
Well, the thing about that.
Does he play the evil Native American guy?
No, he actually plays the David Keith character. Speaking of the flip side of Keith David, his mirror image character actor was in Firestarter. No, they actually got an actual Native American actor to play that role. In the original, they got George C. Scott.
You can tell, they sure do.
That.
In the remake, you can tell they wanted Zahn McClarendon, and he said absolutely not, and they got the second best thing they could. That's a bad film. It does have one exceptional thing, though, which is an original score by John Carpenter. They got him to come in and do the score, and it rules. It's a really good score.
Wait, the new one? Oh, wow. That's cool.
I'd say just YouTube it. Carpenter score, Firestarter 2022. It kicks ass.
The movie, I never knew this, but the movie was written by Burt Lancaster's son, The Thing was. And he was also the guy that wrote the Bad News Bears movies.
Yeah.
So another series of paranoid young youth baseball players. But hey, the Bad News Bears is a classic. So two classics under his this guy's belt.
That's actually very impressive.
I mean, I know The Thing was made in 1982, but it does feel like they're both great 1970s ensembles of just kind of like skeevy dudes. Even though the Bad News Bears are teens, preteens.
I think
even.
Walter Matthau would have fit really well in this ensemble too. That would have been fun.
Yeah, it's interesting to read who they were going for. I think they went out to a bunch of different people as the lead, right? They were thinking about Harrison Ford at one point. They had a bunch of people. Alec Baldwin said, I was reading the trivia, they said that Alec Baldwin read for to be, look, what if Alec Baldwin was Fuchs? What could have been?
Would have been kind of cool.
But
he should have been Windows.
Tom Atkins probably could have been in there somewhere, right? He would have been fun in The Thing.
Yeah, you have to wonder. Yeah, well, they probably considered him, but who would he have sex with in this movie? The Thing. Maybe he'd have sex with The Thing.
Could have been legendary. All right, folks. We're having a good time here, but
we're talking about Tom Atkins' sexual prowess again, which is usually the sign that it's time to wrap things up.
Undeniable.
Yes. Sexual dynamo Tom Atkins.
Any final thoughts on The Thing? John Carpenter's masterpiece, one of the greatest films of all time. That's what I got. It's great. Y'all seen it, Yeah.
Is good.
Yeah, listen to if people haven't heard it, listen to the commentary track that Russell and Carpenter did for this. It's pretty hilarious. I think they're both drinking during it, and it's old now. It's been like 20 years probably since they did it, but it's just pretty funny to hear Kurt Russell laughing at all the gore in this movie. He obviously loves it.
He's a good hang on
especially
a
the head
track,
scene.
They're just a delight as a duo.
Yeah,
they should have a podcast. Why are we doing this? They should be doing this.
Carpenter would probably be mad that we were talking about his movie on a podcast.
Yeah, tough shit, Carpenter.
So cranky. Yeah, tough, dude.
Yeah, come tell us off. I dare you.
Yeah, okay. Let's issue an open challenge to Carpenter to come tell us what we're getting wrong here. I'm sure he'll get right on it, and that'll be that. Thank you very much for joining us, Justin. This has been a real pleasure. Really appreciate it. You should listen to Justin's podcast, Movie Microscope. It's real good. And anything else to plug, Justin?
They do like a deep dive. It's they do lesser known. We go to the low hanging fruit on our thing. We go with the biggest records of all time
2,
or whatever.
That's us. Yes.
Yes. They'll get you an Under Siege 2, hour and 45-minute retrospective that will change the way you look at Everett McGill forever.
Yeah, right. No, we basically just talked. Yeah, look, you guys talked about Underworld on your I think the one I listened to, the Fog episode, right? And you were praising, not Underworld,
Underwater.
Underwater.
Did we talk about that in the fuck?
But I have to say, you mentioned it. I gotta say, we talked about that movie in our show. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to say, I like that movie too.
Yeah, it's kind of good.
Kind of underrated movie.
Not unlike The Thing. It kind of starts in media
yeah.
res. Like it kind of skips the first act and you get you going right away. So yeah, takes the right lessons.
So, but yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. You know, my counterpart on our podcast, the funnier and kind of quicker version, he would have been great on this. So, thanks for settling for me. And you know, but next time maybe he'll do. Who knows? Maybe keep inviting him.
Maybe if we ever let him out of the tool shed.
But thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. Anytime. Welcome back. And that'll do it. Christine is next up for Carpenter. Talk to you then, folks.